This is fancy.
You're so crazy. How did you get this name, KenLikeBarbie? Where did that come from?
So, as a kid in grade school, being that my name is actually Ken, that is how other kids in my generation related my name to Barbie. So when I would introduce myself to a room of like new students, like the first day of class, somebody would always say, well, where's Barbie? That would always be the joke. So I learned quickly to introduce myself as KenLikeBarbie, sort of like take back the throne. So they couldn't make fun of me. It was like I had the power, so that I've been trying to take back the power all of my life with KenLikeBarbie. So when I started blogging, I was like, KenLikeBarbie's the only thing I've ever been. So
right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when people say to me, Craig, like Craigslist. And I'm like, okay, but the corny joke.
Of all things, Craigslist. Yeah. How painful is that? Yeah.
This is very personal work for me.
Politics.
I believe I was called to tell my story, use my voice, be a voice for the community, to speak to and for a community of people that's been ignored, denied,
Love,
overlooked.
relationships, religion,
This is my life's work.
religion.
I want to use words to uplift, heal, inspire, encourage.
Do something different. Every Monday at 10.
Good day, thinkers, thought leaders, progressives, and dreamers. I'm Craig the Writer Stewart, and this is So Much to Say. I have been wanting to do this conversation for the longest. I have KenLikeBarbie. Do you remember how we met? Do you remember that?
I feel like there are a few exchanges that happened on social media that
Right.
led to a phone call.
Yeah, but do you recall? Like, you don't really recall?
I
Like,
don't, so give me the story.
Let me help you.
Yeah.
Let me help
Jog
you.
my memory again.
Well, I kind of came across your Twitter at some point.
Okay.
And this was years ago because I don't even really tweet anymore. I still have a Twitter, but I don't really tweet. And I was just so moved by your openness and your honesty and your own story. And I'm just going to leave it at that because if you guys want to know who KenLikeBarbie is, then you can, of course, follow him on his social media. It's KenLikeBarbie, like the Barbie doll. We ended up DMing. I DM'd you or something, but I first started looking at your YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I just fell in love with the tone and the texture of your voice and just how passionate you were in your videos. That was the beginning. And I said to you, we have to get on camera.
Yes.
But that was years ago.
That was eons ago.
It was.
And I feel like our relationship has been us hunting time to sit down.
Exactly.
So we could either be on camera, but now this podcast, I think, has been a great sort of lead into that because I feel like the relationship that we're going to have is going to be one that is going to create art on multiple occasions, like necessary art, not only for ourselves, our own personal work, but for our communities as well.
Yeah, because I think that the work and I think that's what I fell in love with, because the work that we do respectively is critical. It's critical work.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't wait to introduce you to So Much to Say.
Well, when I tell you I'm so happy to be here with you today, like I love you to pieces. So I the opportunity when you gave me the time and place, I said, no, it has to happen.
Yeah.
Early in the morning as it is, we have to make it happen.
And listen, like you're an activist, you're a speaker, you're a thinker, a thought leader, everything that I say in the intro. And you're an own ambassador. Yes, as in Oprah Winfrey, own ambassador. You know what I mean? So like I salute you.
No, I salute you, and I salute the journey that you're on, because you've had some incredible things happen for your work that are only the beginning. Yeah. And so when I think about your trajectory, I think that whenever it hits for you, and whatever that it is, whatever your intention is set on, like whenever it hits for you, is going to be more than you can handle. But I pray you the strength to be able to gather all the pieces together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to use the word gathering, to pick up on the word gathering, I believe that also means pulling in people like you, pulling in other writers that I know, other videographers, production teams, because I believe that when it happens, it's not just going to be a blessing for me. It's going to be a blessing it's going to change the lives of people around me too. People that I know that have been grinding and doing their thing too.
Which is why I love your work so much, because it is your truth. Like, you're not sharing just stories. You're sharing a piece of you that has helped others come to their own sort of like realizations about themselves and their own journey. So I think it's very valuable what you share, how you share it, and I'm in support of that. So yeah, I will know you for the rest of my life.
That's sweet.
Boom.
What's your first experience with the N-word?
So my very first experience with the N-word, my father actually used to say it a lot. Still probably does. He's still alive. But the N-word in my household was frequented mostly by my father. And to my father, everybody was a nigga. Like, we were little niggas. His friends were, them niggas. And it was a term of endearment for the most part. He was also a loan shark, very funny. And I remember the first time I heard my dad like use it derogatorily. And we were going somewhere. He said, "You want to ride with me?" I said, "Sure." Very much like a hustler, very much like a gangster. And he ran into somebody on the street. I guess he knew the person. And I remember him saying, "Nigga, where's my money?" And it wasn't the friendly nigga like, "You little niggas need to get up and do something." It was very like, let me, before I shoot you, nigga, where's my money? And I thought to myself, like, I had never associated the word at that time when I was much younger to be a negative thing. It wasn't until probably moments like that, in that moment, where I realized nigger was a bad word. But I myself use it to punctuate sentences. It's cursing for me, and I use curse words to punctuate sentences. So I find the word itself to be useful, colorful, and at times necessary.
When you spoke about that, the first thing that I thought about was that movie Antoine Fisher. Remember how the foster mother used to call the nigga, nigga. Like, they knew by her inflection and her tone who she was speaking to, and if she was in a good mood or if she was in a bad mood. So that was the first thing I thought about when you were describing the different variations of how your father used it. My first experience that I can really recall being called a nigger, it was high school. And it was sophomore day in high school. And so we had like a whole presentation at school, and we had a half a day. There was like an assembly. And we got out half a day so that we could go and have lunch and enjoy our day and whatever. And so we were going to, this is in Baltimore, we were going to a restaurant. And I remember it was kind of distant. It was really kind of distant from where I grew up or where I went to school or anything like that. And I remember we were cutting across the parking lot to this restaurant. It was me and like a group of other friends. And we were just walking across this empty parking lot. There weren't any cars, but then there was a pickup truck that came driving past us in that parking lot. There were people in the cab, but then there were like one or two on the back, maybe. And I remember them yelling, "Niggas!" And I remember we just like looked. So it wasn't directed to me individually. I was with a group of people, but that was the first time that I had been called that. And like I said, I was in high school, so I don't know if it really affected me. I don't know if it really stung. And I've never had anybody say it to me that I can recall as an adult. I use it. And I did a post recently on my Facebook saying that I'm really going to make a concerted effort to not say it, even in jest, because it is the single word in the English language that reminds us that we were once property, that we were once owned. And going to your girl, Oprah, as she always says, it's the last word that many black men, or black people really, heard before they died, before they were hanged. It's really become colloquial.
No, it has. I respect people's decision not to use it. Just like I respect people's decision not to eat meat, to become vegan. I get that. I understand the science behind it.
I'm struggling with both.
I mean, I myself, me personally, couldn't do that successfully, but I understand it. So the word, the word itself for me, it colors the conversation different. And sometimes when I'm trying to drive a point, nigga is the only thing I can say.
Let me ask you this. Do you find yourself being more conscious of using the word if other people are around? Or if you're in mixed company, if there are white people in the room, do you find yourself not saying it in front of them? Because in certain situations, I found myself not saying it to people in front of other people, whether it's white people or Latino. I try not to use it in front of them because I guess on some level I don't want them to think that they have permission
to say it. Right. So maybe yes and no. I don't think I've ever been I can't recall being in a situation where I'm in mixed company where I felt the need to say it anyway. And the times that I have, I've always prefaced it like, I'm about to use this word. I need you prepared.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
So even so, in terms of mixed company, let's just say they're not with you. You're in a Starbucks, and you're talking to your black friends, and of course there's some white people in Starbucks, and you're like, nigga, da, da, da. Do you see? For me, I'm conscious even if they're around me.
So I'm conscious about people, period, in those so no matter what the conversation is, even if the word nigga isn't, on the tip of my tongue to be used, like, I'm conscious anyway. So I'm not the person to speak out loud or to be yelling in a crowd of people anyway, anything. So no, I don't worry about that. But if I felt the need that I had to say it, I would say it. I'm one of those people, I said what I said, and that's what it is. I'm done.
I said what I said.
I said.
Nene leaks.
What the hell I said, and I'm done.
And see, I'm the person that will call a white person a nigga. You fucking nigga. Oh, I've done that.
Yeah.
Because see, for me, it transcends race.
Yeah.
To me, it's not specific to black people. I
agree.
To me, when I've used it in those ways, I'm speaking to your level of benightedness or your level of ignorance.
Yeah.
So I've absolutely called white, you fucking nigger.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely.
And they're looking at me like, did you just say that?
And meant it too.
And meant it.
And meant it.
Every syllable.
Right. So getting to that math.
Right.
So no, absolutely. I think even when I think about white people using the word, I don't even think they're specifically talking race necessarily. I think
in every case, yeah.
In every case, especially, I feel like depending on how you view your privilege as a white person, everybody's a nigga to you. When I think about Trump, everybody's a nigga to Trump. He treats everybody like a nigga. And that's just, for them, I believe the word just means beneath. Like, you're just beneath me, you're a nigga.
Yeah. It speaks to a class.
It speaks to a class.
A level of a class. It speaks to a level of education, a certain level education level.
Yeah.
Maybe even a certain socioeconomical level.
All of that. No, I think it encompasses all of that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
For a lot of white
Interestingly,
people.
I saw a stage production the other night. I was just telling you about it. He Loves Her. And it was a stage production about James Baldwin and Nina Simone. And in one of the video clips, they showed James Baldwin, and you can find this on YouTube. He was talking about the word nigger and how it was created by white people. He said, I'm not a nigger. I've never been a nigger. He said, but white people, you have to figure out why you created this word. He said, you created it. You created the nigger. So what is it about you? What does it say about you that you had to create this word and the need for a nigger? And I just thought it was so profound. I had seen that clip before, but it was nice to see it again in that theater space. Because there were white people present.
And how did they respond? Did you notice their reaction?
Well, I looked at their faces at different points because there were also poetry pieces or monologues where there was language around gentrification, and you white people claim to be so progressive and so woke. And you're living in these neighborhoods that were once occupied by black people, and you're walking your dogs and you're running and da-da-da-da, but you aren't really speaking out to the savagery that we see of black folks getting shot. So, like, I looked in moments like that.
Okay.
And they just looked really, I always wonder what they're thinking in those moments, because it's like, this is a truth that's so raw, that's so pure.
And it includes you. And it's speaking to you.
It's speaking to you.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, what's going on through your mind?
Yeah.
And, you know, when they did the talk back at the end, they asked us if we had questions. Again, it was a talk back. And so I really should have, I'm just thinking of it now, but I should have said, I'm curious to know what the white people in the room are thinking about this piece. But I didn't think of it until just now.
Perfect.
Right. Because there were a couple of red faces.
Yeah.
You know, at certain points throughout the show, like I would glance over because they were sitting across from me. And it was a black box theater, so it was like there were people on my side, there were people facing me, and then there were people to my left facing the stage. So it was just like a half circle, like a half moon.
Yeah.
And so I could look around the room and see. But I wish I had asked that question, because I always wonder what white people are thinking in moments like that. And interestingly, I saw this piece, and I'm trying to think of exactly what it was or where I was when I saw it. And it was talking about white people. It was some documentary, and I can't think of what it was now. Hopefully it'll come back to me. But it was talking about how, it was an article that I read. It wasn't a documentary. It was an article that I read. And it was talking about white people and how the movie Hidden Figures.
Okay.
And I posted about this too on my social media on Facebook. It was talking about Hidden Figures, and they were talking about the discrepancies in the movie with Taraji and Janelle Monáe and Octavia Spencer. There was a point in the movie when, did you see Hidden Figures?
I did see Hidden Figures.
Remember the point where she kept running back and forth? She had to run like a mile or so to use the restroom. She had to go to the other side of the campus, and one time in the movie she got drenched because it was raining, and the boss was always looking for her. It was actually an article, and it was a video clip in the article, embedded in the article, because the woman that Taraji played said two of the things that never happened were Kevin Costner, he played the part where he went downstairs and he banged down the sign that said colors and black. That never happened. And the part that also never happened was, remember at the end when she had done the math and then they let her into that room to actually watch the actual launch? That never happened.
Wow.
She said she was sitting at her desk.
Wow.
And they said in this article that I know, they were saying that because the author was like, well, why did they change that? Why? They asked the director or whomever, why did you change that? And she even said, the woman said, that Taraji played, said, I don't understand why they did that either. But what the article was saying was, it's because they have to try to pacify the ego of white people. White people need to see that we're not as evil as they say it was. You know, there is some good in us. And also for the white people watching the film, they want to make sure that they don't leave there thinking, or that make sure that they leave there thinking, I would have been that kind of a white guy. I would have been the kind that would have said, okay, enough of this, da-da-da-da. They didn't really want to paint it as ugly as it really was. There had to be this kind of
white hope.
White hope. That's exactly the term that they use.
We helped you.
Exactly.
Even in small increments, we have helped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
even if it's incrementally, yeah.
I have been really moody since November 9th.
Okay.
Actually, of last year, and you know, I remember things like people dissing Gabby's hair at the Olympics, things like the remake of Roots, and I was watching the remake, and something happened with poor I can't even think of the young lady's name who played Kizzy, but something happened to that character, and I thought to myself, who on earth, like, who do white people
think they are? Yeah.
Like, who? And I
yeah.
And I don't want to be that black person.
Well, I am.
But I often wonder who and Hollywood is only a reflection of that, because that's their art.
Absolutely.
And they have been taught and trained to glorify all of their heroes who they've lied about in the history books, and they've made standard education for this country. Like, when I think about the right answer, Christopher Columbus being the right answer, it blows my mind that we're in 2017 and we still haven't taught the truth yet. Like, we still celebrate Christopher Columbus Day. So when I hear things like, I was already upset that it took forever and a day for a movie like Hidden Figures to even come out about the stories of these three black women who have done
a true story
about these three black women, to hear that even in that story they still had to water it down to glorify their white God, their white hope. And that just it rubs me.
And it's so interesting because I went to a one-man show right as that movie was released. And it was a one-man show about Bayard Rustin. And for those who are listening, you need to Google Bayard Rustin
if you don't know.
If you don't know right. But just briefly, he was our Harvey Milk. Just to put it plainly, he was Martin Luther King's right-hand man. He is responsible for organizing the Freedom Riders, and he was openly gay. I would love to do his story one day. Like, if I was just in the position today to be able to create all of the projects that are in my mind, that would be one of the stories that I would do.
Bravo. I would help you with that project.
Yes. I would absolutely want to do that story.
Okay.
So maybe from our lips to God's ears, maybe it will happen. But I went to this stage production. It was a one-man show about his life. And at the end, there was a talk back. There was a white guy in there who said, you know what, I'm not even really familiar with him. And you know, we're now having this movie Hidden Figures come out. And how are there so many stories that are coming out that we just don't know about black people and just da-da-da? But the answer is simple. It's because white people, the institution of racism, if you will, was very deliberate. It was intentional to delete our stories from history. And I always wonder, like, what length did you go through to cover it up?
Not even to delete them. Don't write them down.
Don't even write them down.
Don't even write that down.
Exactly. How did they hide Hidden Figures for as many years as they did? Even with the Henrietta Lacks story.
I was just about to go to Henrietta Lacks.
Listen, I'm from Baltimore, and I've never heard of this woman.
When I think about how much money they made off of her and her family, and never paid a dime.
And them people probably living in poverty in Baltimore.
Not a dime. They received not a dime. Experimented with this woman's cells, and her family received nothing?
Exactly.
No.
Every medical breakthrough that's happened around the world, her cells are responsible for a portion of it. And her family is destitute? Do you?
It wouldn't have been Trump's family.
No, it wouldn't have.
It wouldn't have been the Johnson family.
It wouldn't have been the Einsteins.
It wouldn't have been I can't even think of that white man's names because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been them.
Exactly.
The issue that I'm having is that America has has a problem, and she's not willing to admit her problem. I would be fine if she cut the America, the land of the brave, home of the free bullshit. Like, just cut that out. Just America, America the racist. Like,
absolutely.
If we openly and honestly said that, we would have at least a starting point. Like, I wouldn't have to then think that you're, being so manipulative or crazy, because this is crazy. Like, Trump in office after a Barack Obama administration is crazy.
It's absolutely crazy.
Because what that means is the founding documents of our country, there will always be language in that document to keep those who it wasn't written for oppressed. And Trump is as oppressive as it gets now at the top level. Like, what he has only said since he's been in office: take away their rights. Take away their LGBT, their black, Hispanic, Mexican, Muslim. Take away all of their rights. Transgender. Take away their rights. When I hear the media talk about how he doesn't have any political experience, how how this is all very new for him, I'm thinking, we knew that before he got in office.
Yes,
he's been a rapey son of a bitch, criminal since before he was in office.
Correct.
How is this news?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't news. The question is, how is he there? America's racist.
Absolutely.
America is racist. And if you aren't, and if that isn't your answer to how Trump is in office, I don't trust you.
And how dare you, America, white people, pretend to not know any of this stuff? You understand?
Yeah.
Because it's like, how dare you look at Kaepernick and say, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
How disrespectful. And he exercised his right, and you're punishing him now by not giving this man a contract because this is your way of punishing him for not respecting. Really?
Yeah, because the amendments that give people the right to speak, again, weren't written for us.
They weren't.
They weren't. They were not. It's only a problem when we use it against them.
Absolutely.
So I feel like the Constitution needs to be rewritten.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at best we were 3/5 a person. At best we were a nigga, Negro, coon, slave. At best.
Yeah.
At best, that is how the laws will support you. 3/5 a person.
And when I think of all of the things that we've been cheated out of, whether we're talking about the Henrietta Lack cells, or we're talking about the African artisans that created things here that white folks benefit from. I spoke about this on one of my other podcasts, and I'm just going to go briefly about it just to refresh. There was a woman that was on, a white woman that was on Antique Roadshow, and she had like this floor pot. She had no idea about the history of the pot. It was just passed down in her family over generations. And she brought it in just to see if it was going to be worth anything. So the appraiser said to her, oh, it's worth about $60,000. It was between 40 and 60. It was some crazy number.
Gosh.
And he explained to her that it was created by this slave. See that name down at the bottom? It says Dave. He was known as Dave the Slave. And to your point about the Henrietta Lack thing, here this man he had created all of this work, and the appraiser went on to say that his work was few and far between now, and it's displayed in a few museums around the world. There aren't many, and this one is in really great shape. So you've really found a treasure. But his family, Dave's family, his descendants, own not one piece of it, I bet. And when you think about all of the things that we've not been credited for, and all of the things that would have put us as a people in a different position, because it would have really changed the way that many black folks are situated financially in this country.
Yes, blue blood money, we weren't even privileged.
Absolutely.
We were still property for those who had the money.
Yes. And so they owned everything that he created. They've owned a lot of what we've created. And so we haven't benefited. And so here this white woman would take that money and she'll put that money in a trust for her own kids or grandkids or start a business or, you know, those things that we often don't get an opportunity to do because we haven't had anything to pass down.
And to your point, the money that she's saving now for her children, his family, Dave the Slave's family, will never see.
Never see.
Never see.
And they're somewhere struggling, maybe on social services. It's cyclical.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a piece that I want to share with you.
Please do.
It's actually it's the dedication for my forthcoming book. And
which we're all excited about.
I can't wait to release it. I'm so proud of this work. I really think it's the best, my best work.
Good.
It's taken me some time to write it because it's not me just recounting my life like I did in the first two books. This is really the biggest life lessons that I've learned. Okay. And each chapter signifies one of those lessons. So the opening chapter is called Life. The last chapter is called Death. But there's a chapter called Dating. Okay. There's a chapter called Love and Fear. There's a chapter called Faith. So it really takes me some time. It's taken me some time because I really have to be sure about every single thing that I'm writing and be clear that each piece that I'm writing, each word matters and it counts. And it really is a lesson that I've learned. But this is the dedication for the book. And I absolutely dedicate this work to black people. In the past, when I considered giving up in business or as a writer because it became difficult, I think about them, my people. You are the descendant of slaves that would not quit. Susan L. Taylor, former editor-in-chief of Essence magazine, said those words at Hampton University when I was a student there. She continued by saying, "There isn't anything that you can't do. You are here because they would not die." I always reminded myself that I could never give up because they couldn't, and because I have their blood running through my veins. I do it for them. I rely on their strength. It helps move me along. I keep going for them. Our strength as a people is recorded in history, and it's unmatched. I love everything there is about being black, our prevailing strength, resilience, adaptability, the rhythm with which we move and speak, our natural instinct to overcome, recreate, and survive. But I didn't always love everything about us. I'm guilty of being harder, more judgmental on us than I should have been. I was embarrassed by the ills of the community, the ghetto language with which some use to speak, the rising number of underage single mothers, the inflated prison and addiction rates, failing school systems, until I realized a few things. One, the media wanted black people to see and believe those things about black people. Those things weren't completely true. Two, it was my own concern about what white people thought of us. Until I divorced myself from those thoughts and any concern about the white gaze. And finally, we've been severely marginalized by a system designed to make us fail because our potential is limitless. Despite it all, we survive with dignity while managing to produce greatness and remain the envy of the world for our brilliance and genius. As I write this dedication, my adoration for my people, I realize these words are like a dog whistle, sure to incite curiosity. Questions of whether or not racism is at play. To answer simply, because I'm for my people, doesn't mean I'm against anyone else. I just love us and all we've accomplished with the scraps left for us.
Bravo.
I'm charged with the responsibility of being sweeter and kinder to and more supportive of people of color. We deserve that in the very least. We're magic. The world knows it. Some hate us because of it. These names have been etched in our hearts and minds and recorded in history, never to be forgotten. Amadou Diallo, Sean Bell, Oscar Grant, Rakia Boyd,
Bravo.
Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Laquan McDonald, Philando Castile, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, Alton Sterling, and many others. Yeah.
Bravo. You had mentioned something about the media sort of amplifying,
The ills in our community.
the ills in our community. Great way to put that. I think white privilege for me has to be, having created the institutions to create the paper, to write the history books on. It has to be the institutions that has created media and what gets put into the media.
Absolutely.
And so when I think about how, black people, how, not just black people, how marginalized people are demonized in the media, I think someone is consciously making this decision to show, this is what we want to show the world about black people, about Hispanic people, about Muslim people. This is what we want to show the world. And it rubs me to my core the wrong way. Because sort of what it's saying is, is like you said, it is teaching us how to hate ourselves a little bit more, how to be complacent a little bit more, and then you have those progressive white people who say they want to help, who want to help. I'm sure I get it, but try to convince us that they don't understand the system. You have to understand the system.
Right.
Your people wrote the documents that all of this is based out of. Like you were raised with the knowledge of, with the concept of America, the great being this vast country that is ample enough to give you what you need. But we were never afforded, me as a marginalized human being was never afforded some of those privileges. And I feel like that is where the disconnect is. And most people, white people, try to convince us that they've never seen it, they don't understand it, and it's just bullshit. It's absolute bullshit.
And I'm not buying it.
Yeah,
I can't accept that.
I can't be sold.
Yeah, because the reality is, if you truly do not know, then you need to do some research.
Then you have to.
Yeah, you should. There's no excuse for your ignorance.
No.
There's no excuse for your ignorance.
No.
I heard Van Jones say, CNN commentator, the interesting part about racism isn't so much about what they do to black people or other people. It's the things that they exclude you from, the things that they don't tell you about. He talked about when he was a law student. This is on the footnotes of Jay-Z's new album, 444.
Oh, bravo.
He talks about how his colleagues were invited to the homes of their law professors. They were invited to the judges' chambers and work programs and take this job as a court clerk or whatever while they were students, to give them that on-the-job experience, which, of course, gave them a head start in ways that he never got. He said, I didn't even know these conversations were happening. He said, so it's not so much just the things that they do to you, it's the things that they exclude you from, the things that they don't even tell you about. And they make no apology about it.
Oh, no.
And that's why it's so critical for us to begin to do that kind of thing for each other, to support each other and to hold each other up. But we can't even get somebody to like a picture on an Instagram when you're promoting your business or your product or whatever it is. We won't even always like each other's pictures or share a person's post to help celebrate them because of whatever we think it means for us.
Well, I feel like we were taught to be our worst oppressors. Mm-hmm. When I think about the black church, when I think about the blonde, blue-eyed Jesus that they told us to believe in.
Which goes back to the Christopher Columbus.
Absolutely, yeah. Which goes back to all these alternative facts that we've been bathing in since we've been alive in this country.
Bathing in.
Yeah, I mean,
that.
It's disgusting how this system has kept us underneath the thumb of either the white Jesus or the laws that the white Jesus is now blessing. God bless America. Of course, God bless America. We will give them tax breaks for preaching our God, which is how the richest man in the black community is the preacher. So we'll reward them for keeping them suppressed and keeping them maintained. And so what we'll do is we'll hate each other for being gay. We'll hate each other for being blacker than each other. Like it is a cycle that will only worsen unless the revolution becomes like attack the system, rewrite this Constitution. Something needs to be done.
And we've been taught to not trust each other.
Oh, absolutely.
To not trust each other.
Yeah.
And the thing is, to your point about until it becomes to attack the system.
Yeah.
In every instance of us trying to, or every movement that's been created to try to attack the system, it ends up working to a point. Then it stops working because this same stuff that we're talking about now, it starts to break down internally. We stop trusting each other. We start pointing fingers. Well, why is he the leader? Why is he in charge? Going all the way back to the Million Man March. Like we had Christians and evangelicals, if you will, who didn't want to be led by Farrakhan because he was the one who organized and he was the head, quote unquote. But my thing is, sometimes we get so lost and we miss the message because we get lost in those kinds of things. Even when you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, the division that I've seen that has happened in some cases with that is it's become, and I'm again speaking specifically about the internal breakdowns. I'm not talking about the white people on the outside saying all lives matter and why is it divisive. I'm talking about within the black community, we see people saying this division between the black community and the black gay community and the black trans community. Like there's this breakdown because for those who don't know, the three figureheads or the three organizers for Black Lives Matter, they're queer women, black queer women. Yeah. So then it became, well, their agenda is becoming too queer or too gay or too, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so now we've lost the message. We've lost this thrust, this opportunity to attack the system, to use your words.
There will always be cues in the language to keep those who the Constitution wasn't written for oppressed. So when I hear that, I think of all the systems that were put into place to make black people believe that we should be turning on each other.
Yeah.
Again, going back to the black church, our biggest problem, a man preaching in the pulpit condemning everyone and everything that the blonde, blue-eyed Jesus had taught them to condemn. Because what that looks like is, somebody who's living with HIV now on the street because they were kicked out of their homes because they were gay and they were young and we can't have no faggots, in our house. We can't do that because our God says that whatever the Shirley Caesar, Kim Burrell, rhetoric was earlier this year, all of that filters into us being divisive of each other. And so you're right, we can't attack the system because the system has already penetrated us in such a way that we're just trying to survive. And the only way that we know how to survive is to step on each other. Somebody had a wonderful crab in the barrel sort of Facebook meme, and I can't recall the language of that meme, but it was something to the tune of, the crab in the barrel mindset is what it is because we weren't supposed to be in the barrel in the first place. We weren't supposed to be, we were at home chilling, being who we were in the wild with our zebra and our sheep. We were at home chilling.
Right.
And we get thrusted into an entire world that was against our skin color, that was against our heritage, that was against our put a name on it. What makes me okay with the word nigga is because we did survive all of that.
Absolutely.
And this new administration, we're going to survive that too. What America is going to wake up and realize after however long Trump will be in office is that the sad part about people and the privilege of people like Trump is that because he sees everyone as a nigga, that almost no one will be left with rights but him and his kind. Because I think what his purpose is to make rape legal again, to make racism that much more legal again, to set the stage to keep suppression at top priority. And I feel that with each move that he has made since being in office has been conjured up to that has been the purpose of it. So I'm really interested to see what these next 4 years will look like. I'm really interested to see how long we will sit here and tolerate all of these injustices because this is disgusting.
I want to step back to the point that you were making about how we don't trust each other, how we don't work together, we don't support each other, and where it stems from. Like we were talking about, it stems from slavery, I would imagine.
All of these systems that say black people are
right.
stand.
And so even when you think about how that ideology bleeds over into entertainment, because I'm a writer, and I've watched the industry for some time now, and I'm sure you've heard actresses, black actresses, or actors, I should say, male and female, say that there aren't enough roles for us. Hollywood isn't right. Hollywood being an institution.
Yeah.
Hollywood doesn't create enough roles for us, and they're not telling our stories. But I'm a writer, and I've been telling our stories.
Yeah.
And I'm only one writer. There are thousands of black writers waiting to get into the industry. Black writers that are waiting to get discovered, if you will.
Yeah.
But we're being overlooked. And you know why we're being overlooked? Is because our actresses, black actors and actresses, don't acknowledge us. Because they're so busy looking to Hollywood to tell our stories. And as a gay writer, I know makeup artists, I know hairstylists, I know the chefs of some of these actors and actresses that are screaming this stuff in these interviews and panel discussions. But we create blocks, we create barricades, and they sometimes insulate themselves so that I can't reach them. Other black writers cannot reach them. And although I know your hairstylist, you've created a conflict of interest. If your hairstylist says, oh, my friend Craig is a writer, or oh, my friend whoever is a writer, and he has this script, and he has it written for you. He wants you to be in this project. So it becomes this thing where either the talent that separates us, the hairstylist that I know, the chef or whomever, they don't feel comfortable coming to our actors and actresses to say, well, listen, here's a project that's great. He's been writing for years. And again, I'm just throwing myself in there, but I'm just saying in general. Yeah. And we sometimes overlook each other. And then sometimes we gatekeep. So sometimes, so sometimes it's not because the actor or actresses aren't open to accepting talent or projects from unknown writers or producers or directors. Sometimes the hairstylist that can open that door for us, or the chef, they gatekeep. They keep you away from them. You know what I mean? Because we don't always support each other. Yeah. So sometimes we're our own problem.
And again, I think that in those moments where we're our own problem, I see that as us having been taught that we were
Absolutely.
to be each other's problems.
Absolutely.
We were taught to when you get something good, keep it to yourself.
Yes.
Like your master's treating you really well, keep them to yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't share this because then you might lose it.
Right. Then somebody's gonna use you and mistreat you.
Exactly.
Right. So I feel like it's generational. It is. It is, mental. It is, it's all of these things that have we've been raised under this ideology that suppression is okay. Suppression and oppression is okay for us. I was watching The Color Purple. I had seen it 1,000 times as a child. My mother was a fan of the movie. I grew up knowing who Celie Nettie, Mr.
In your own life.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew these people.
Yeah.
But it'd been a while since I had seen the film, and I hadn't seen the film, since my mother had passed. My mother passed earlier this year. So watching the film after, the election, after my mom dying, I watched it with like these new
fresh eyes. Yeah.
And so what I saw when I saw this movie, wept in all the right places. And I haven't wept having seen this film in years, but I realized that what The Color Purple really taught me was how all the systems that were created in this country are used to suppress the black woman.
Yeah. Listen.
Baby, and I wonder, are we suppressing the black woman because she is actually God?
Listen.
And she has given birth to almost everybody in this country. Like
she has given birth.
I mean, she's a pretty bad, mamma jamma. Like I think of, and then I think of how our culture is so conformed to the white agenda. I think about the Obamas and how how Barack had to be perfect and how Michelle had to have straight hair. How it was okay for him to be biracial, but she had to be black. They said, don't let no nigga in this White House.
Good luck.
With a white woman or a light-skinned woman. I don't want America to even think that it's okay for a black man to have a creamy colored or white wife. I don't want the world thinking that we're letting these niggas fuck our women. And so make sure that he has not only a black wife, but that her hair is conformed, because I don't want our children to appropriate that nappy shit.
Now you can appropriate our culture.
Right, we can appropriate it. They can have it braided, they can sing their songs. We don't want no afro.
Absolutely. Listen. When you said that,
I'm cringing.
It opened up so many things for me. And I'm going to tell you what the first thing that it opened for me, to your point about black women being under attack. Because I believe that's a real thing.
Yeah, no, it is.
I believe that's a real thing. And the first thing that I thought about was, I believe it was in Selma, the movie, when they showed how, or it may have been something that I just learned along the way in studying, but I think it was partly in Selma too, when the FBI and all of these in the government were trying to disassemble the civil rights movement. The way that they tried to do it, they tried to attack it, was to break down Martin Luther King's family. They would send Coretta Scott King information about the affairs that he was having. And, that kind of thing, because they figured if they could create and stir up trouble at home for him, that he'd be distracted. He'd be distracted from the movement. And so that then made me think about, when you said the Obamas, what systems were in place to try to break them down? Were there things that happened between them that we don't know about, that we maybe will learn 10 years from? Because I had never known that about Martin Luther King. So what will happen 20 years from now that will be uncovered to show the things that they really were going through in that White House?
I would imagine that the moment Barack stepped into the White House, somebody, the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, pulled him to the side and said, don't think this is your opportunity to help them. I think most of those non-disclosure sort of acts are around, race. And I feel, even when I think about Trump, but we'll talk about that later, but I feel like he stepped into the White House and said, this isn't your opportunity to help no nigga. Like, we'll give you some wiggle room, but like, this is the extent of it. Like,
these are your boundaries.
These are your boundaries, and you're going to stay within your boundaries, or we'll wipe you all out. Like, but I also feel like it was in that moment where the 1% of the 1% who is really making the decisions, the decisions for this country said, now that we have this black person in office, go kill all of the black men. And I know you've already been doing it, but at this time, give them, what do you call them? Those camera phones, since we create the media. I want them to see themselves getting killed. And then make sure they're being murdered by someone of authority in the community and acquit them. This will fuck them up. This will confuse the niggas. Blame everything on the Muslims because their God isn't our blonde, blue-eyed Jesus. Their God is some nigga, so blame them. And hire the Mexicans, we'll slave them next. The Indians, who's even thinking about Indians?
Correct.
I just feel like somebody is
Curating all of this.
all of this. We're nothing but puppets. And it feels like a dance that has to come to a head. Like something has to happen because eventually we're going to get so either bogged down or oppressed or to whatever where nobody will have anything but the rich will just be the rich. When I think about Trump trying to cut taxes for the rich because the rich are paying these exorbitant amount of taxes, well, sweetie, if they're allowed to pay those taxes and still be rich, they ain't hurt nobody.
Right.
Because if you make the poor people pay for those damn taxes, that makes them only poorer.
Right.
So I feel like something has got to give, and when it gives, there's going to be an explosion in the cosmos, and I want to be on the front line somewhere, either whooping ass and taking names. Like I just need to be somewhere in the vicinity. We got him.
Right.
We got her. Who's
Right.
next?
Right.
How are you feeling over there?
We talked about some good shit.
I
It makes me realize, though, this is part of the reason why this country has been under attack. Whether it was the towers in New York.
No.
Or, you understand what I'm saying? It's people, and I'm not justifying it.
No.
But they're, and I'm not saying that they were warranted. But that's why you see this kind of...
Every nation in this world has been fighting the white man.
Yeah.
Because the white man has been trying to infiltrate himself everywhere in this world because he wants to rule everything.
Exactly.
That is why we're under attack.
Exactly.
That make America great again. When was it great?
But all of this is rooted in fear. The white man's fear.
Oh, absolutely.
And his insecurity.
Because absolutely. What is he? He's insecure.
That's why you create these
we're
systems.
Going to breed them out.
Absolutely.
That's what he's
and take
scared
over.
of.
Because you know the potential.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why you clip us.
Because they're gay white boys like black cock. Even their
Black
gay
dick.
white boys like black dick. Everybody likes black. Everybody likes a little color to their dick. Either you like it chocolate or you like it, spicy and Spanish. You who doesn't like a little bit of color? So I feel like I feel like they have to feel like we need to stay on top of this. Otherwise,
We have to manage them.
There won't be any more of us.
We have to control them.
Which is why Planned Parenthood is under attack because
Absolutely.
young white women are getting these abortions probably by other white men, and so white men in power are thinking, well, we can't have them aborting our children because, again, eventually the colors will breed us out. Somebody's being strategic. You're right. Somebody is curating all of this. When it comes to a head, we just need to be ready because something has got to give. There has to be a softening in the walls of this because too much is going on. Too much is going on. There's too much murder. There's too much, police brutality. There's too much of it.
That's KenLikeBarbie, guys.
No.
Follow him on Instagram.
Please don't. You don't have to.
It's KenLikeBarbie.
Bravo.
Thank you for listening. Please share this podcast. I'm Craig, the writer Stewart. Don't forget to subscribe.